Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We're continuing the grind on Sand Devils 25. So we did showcase another video recently about using some other champions to do some really fast approaches on beating Sand Devils and some technicalities that come with it. However, if you don't have access to a lot of those champions, but you may have access to like maybe Aniri, for example, who's a part of like the original duo for a lot of comps, I thought I'd bring something to the table that'd be a little bit more different for you guys. And we're bringing in no other than the fat man himself, Fahrakin the Fat. So I do have some things I want to talk about in terms of like how his build and how Aniri's build were impacted with him being a part of her duo partner, but we're going to do the run. I won't lie, this is not one of the faster teams. This is one of the teams that's more in terms of like consistency that you're aiming for. One of the reasons why this team became a reality for me, and I'm just going to kind of preface why I use this team currently on my account, was because I don't have the luxury of having access to champions like Walking Toon Drink, who's also a well-known staple in the team, as well as like some other champions that would be a little bit more noteworthy. However, my account needed to get access to Artec, who I was using for Sand Devil 24 at the time, and you guys seen plenty of videos that I've done for that champion or that duo comp. But I decided that it would be fortuitous or better appropriate for my account to be able to effectively do Ice Golem 10, and Artec was my answer for that. However, that left a hole for me to fill in Sand Devil. And I was like, well, if I'm going to go ahead and have to do another team, originally it was going to be Chronum, and I was like, man, that's like a lateral change. Why not see if we could take it up a step notch? And we started looking, and I have to give a special nod to Crafty, or Crafty Crab, if you're listening. Big salute to you, big brother. He actually was like, you know what, why not try Fat Man? And I was like, well, you know, we do have to worry about some aspects, and we'll kind of break it down here in a little bit. But we went through some iterations from it. Sometimes we failed, sometimes we were succeeding, and then, you know, as my account progressed a little bit more, I got to a point where it's like, okay, now the builds are getting a little bit more tankier. Maybe if we compensate for this, and, you know, this and that, and then we would find an answer. And then lo and behold, as my progression in my account kind of went up, I found that having the right amount of tankiness gave me the leniency to be able to slot Fat Man in, and it's pretty successful now. Now, with that being said, the way this comp is designed is basically to let these two live and exist through the revive on death mechanic from Aniri. She revives herself with that passive, and then she revives with her actual revive to Fat Man, and then they pretty much rinse and repeat during the sleep period to put some burns on. He gets chunked and he dies. So like roughly on average, this is about like a 4-minute turn. That's why I'm kind of talking through it, just so you guys can kind of see it while I'm also experiencing it. We're also live, so if you haven't seen us on YouTube or Twitch, feel free to follow us and subscribe to the channel so you can be a part of that experience whenever we are live, like right now. But with that being said, one of the issues about this comp is that you have to worry about the deflect damage that you take from Fat Man. What he gets, he sends a portion of it across his team, and since it's only Aniri there at the moment, she takes the brunt of that damage, right? So the reality of it is that, with that being said, what you would normally need for like a tanky amount of efforts towards Aniri has to go up a notch. And truthfully, also for Fat Man, although he is positive affinity against this, his damage output does reflect over. So the less that he's reflecting over from his tankiness allows Aniri to live a little bit more too as well. And I have to be honest with you guys, a lot of this this comp is going to be a little bit more in the technical aspect side of things. So, you know, high HP, high defense is always going to be a value stat. For Fat Man in particular, since he's trying to put debuffs up, you need him to be able to land the debuffs appropriately. So accuracy is also another like stat requirement you have to facilitate. So north of the 500 rounds, you know, like how Sand Devil is, you can take a look at his stuff. As a matter of fact, if I still have it up, I'll pull it up for you guys real quick to see. But pretty much, I'm going to refer to good old Hell Hades Optimizer tool. We're going to look here real quick while the run is going on in the background. You go to your Sand Devil's Necropolis. Of course, there's only normal stages. Go down to 25, and you'll see that his resistance is 500, so on average, you want at least 525. This will assume that you have like at least a 95% chance. Of course, the higher the accuracy, the closer you can get to 97%, the more effective it'll be. But that's pretty much roughly a good place to be at. You can't get a full 100% because there's always a 3% effect. So the closer you get to 97%, pretty much is where you go, right? Now, with that being said, also to kind of noteworthy, to put of note, is that Sand Devil goes at a pretty decent speed. Believe it or not, Aniri's the only one that's kind of taxing from a speed standpoint, whereas like Fat Man, believe it or not, he's not that fast. You don't have to go that fast to be able to go there. So I'm going to show you the builds and the way I have some of the mastery set up after this run is completed. We're pretty much getting closer towards the tail end of it. I think we got like 2 more cycles, maybe 3, depending on RNG for like a 3% or whatever. But I'll show you the build, and you guys can kind of see it from there. But the long and short of it is that like being able to free up some champions that you may have locked into content for Sand Devils, that was my main justification behind this. And there are some alternatives I'm going to present to you guys too after this, after I show you guys the builds and whatnot. But basically, in a summary of words, being able to have a little bit more flexibility, or what I would like to say, reappropriating your champions and gear to facilitate other needs of the game so that you have a good spread of being able to complete progress in a lot of different areas was the main linchpin behind my decision in doing this. I did love the Artec build, but this gave me ability to go to 25, which is even more important now if you're watching this at this time. At the time of this recording, we now have powders, so 25 on Shoguns and Sand Devils are the way to go, right? So this is, if you don't have that walking Toon Drain and you're looking for an answer for it, you can technically get it done. So roughly on average, around 4 minutes and 40 seconds. It's not fast, but it is something, so I wanted to present that to you guys. Let me show you the build so you can kind of have an idea of what we're looking for, and I'll tell you some ways we can also improve it too. So, Aniri, as always, the queen herself in terms of the duo comp. She's one of the ones that established with Ninja and all the other champions when they first came out, and as it progressed and our gears become more efficient, it's pretty much the same thing as always, right? Regeneration and Immortal are pretty key here. I am running her at a pretty hefty amount of speed, which is around 270. It's pretty much on par with the boss. She does have a healthy amount of defense and HP. Honestly, I wouldn't mind a little bit more HP, but truthfully, believe it or not, the defense actually played a pretty key part about it. One part of my progression of making this build more efficient was I went from like increments of 4K to 4.2, 4.4, I believe it was, and 4.5. And there was, as I went further up, it got more effective. But once I hit around like where you see me now in 4.7 and higher, she's like, yo, I got this, you know, hit me baby one more time, you know what I mean? She's down for it. And then of course being north of like 65,000 to 69,000 and then eventually 71, almost 72,000 was like a really big reference point about like the efficiency improving. Now this requirement in terms of like extra stats on that is particularly because of Fahrakin the Fat himself. Like I said before, his kit, his passive is kind of the thing that really makes it really difficult, which is the deflect from body block. So we have to compensate for that, for lack of better words. But with that being said, having Aniri really tanky was kind of like the thing that made it really good. Now, Aniri, for me, she only has her 3-star blessing, which is a miracle heal. That's pretty much going to be the one that you're going to use when you're thinking about Sand Devil and Aniri. To restore maximum HP and also effectively makes it more efficient. It's very valuable, right? And of course, as you level up, you're getting a little more HP, a little bit more speed, a little more HP. That'll definitely help down the road too, if the higher you go up. Now, I want to take a break moment here and stop, and I want to tell you guys that the higher you go into blessings, I think around like 5 is when it hits that juicy spot. When you hit 5-star blessing, you can actually drop her speeds quite a bit. Same thing with Fat Man. Fat Man can stay the exact same. Aniri can drop her speeds as long as you maintain her tankiness, and you can also add food in there with that. That's a nice little nod to like further progressing the build a little bit more. I don't have the luxury because I'm prioritizing other champions at the moment with my blessings. You know, we ain't got SoulSaints like that. You know what I'm saying? But I will say this: if you were to take this build up and take it up a notch, you can actually introduce foods with a fully booked Aniri once you get up to the higher blessing levels for her in terms of miracle heal. So that is something to look forward to if you don't have the means right now, but you want to at least get started with an Aniri duo build for Sand Devils, whether that's 24, 25. It gets easier in terms of stat requirements the more higher your blessings go up, and then of course it opens the door for food to be also processed in there. The only thing you have to watch out for is priority slotting in terms of the positioning, and of course making sure it's tuned up properly. But with that being said, the blessings are kind of basically designed to give her as much survivability as possible. A lot of the boss hits are pretty much going to be based off of just AoEs. It's from Blast Proof. You want to make sure her heals are pretty much more amplified, so like stats like Rejuvenation, even lay hands is more effective. And then of course, I talked about this in the other videos, but to kind of give like a special nod, Shadow Heal, when he does his big swipe that you have to survive, not the big swipe that kills you and you revive on death, it's the one that happens after he wakes up. Shadow Heal will proc because he's also getting a heal at that moment for that ability. So he heals and then he does the damage. So if you are kind of like, I'm almost there, I just need a little bit more to survive, Shadow Heal actually kicks in. It's super impactful. It's actually something that would make or break being able to survive the output of his damage, you know. And then of course going down the road for like being able to give yourself a little bit more survivability as much as possible. Spirit Haste could be useful, but I won't lie. You might want to be careful with this if you're running this in a composition that does include food down the road, because this will proc and trigger. So just something to keep in mind, that there may be a little bit of a variation, a little bit of an alteration there. But at the end of it all, we're just pushing for efficiency and stats. That's basically what we want to do. We want to survive. So Elixir of Life is huge. Steadfast is huge because it amplifies our HP, making us more tanky, right? Now, for Fat Man, on the other side of things, his build is kind of the same, but with an extra caveat. We want to make sure we're landing as much of our debuffs as we can. So in terms of stats, I'm looking to hit north of 500. Remember, the goal was 525. I was able to healthily hit around 554. I think that's more than enough, but like, to be honest with you, the more you have around 525 or higher, the better, right? Now, I actually did 45,000 HP with like barely 3k HP in the exact same speeds, 215 to 220. And believe it or not, that was one of the bigger impactful parts about this duo comp, is that because he was less tankier, his impact in terms of the deflect was a lot more exponential, which actually did cause Aniri, if you had a chance where she got like double crit on top of his deflect, it was just too much damage, she would die. So there was those chance failures. It would proc her revive on death, she would come back alive, and then he does the big swipe where you do need the revive on death and it's on cooldown, right? So you want to avoid those as much as possible. You want to kind of keep them going throughout the process of the fight, right? So, building up his tankiness, I started seeing a lot more of a healthier success range around like 55k and higher. That was like a really good break point. And believe it or not, the defense side, I didn't try to put too much effort in it, but I noticed the moment I started getting over like 3.1, I think it was like 3.130 is when I did a check and I started noticing it was like healthier, and then I pushed him up some more and I saw, I was like, okay, this is starting to feel really, really good. That partnered with beefing up Aniri's tankiness is what really kind of got us to that point where it's like, all right, this feels really good. So we got there. I still think around like 215 to 225 is perfectly within a solid range. I slotted in at 220, so if you have any complications, go to 220. If not, maybe you want to take a look at some other stuff and see what's going on. But pretty much regeneration is mandatory, and then a complementary set to help beef up the stats wherever you can. So I went with perception to give me a little bit more accuracy, a little bit of extra speed on top of that, and then I'm mainly looking for stats that give me what I'm looking for in terms of survivability, like HP percent on the primary stats on the bottom row, speed where it's applicable, defense percent, and then of course accuracy here and there sprinkled throughout the rest of the build, right? Now for him, I don't have any blessings, but I won't lie. Let me pull them out for a second here so you guys can kind of hear some reference points. If you do have some, I did see some people use like Iron Will, which just basically is damage reduction in general, or maybe a nod towards like Faultless Defense, which is just straight up damage reduction. That might be some extra ones, or something that gives you some complementary stats like, you know, HP, defense to be a fair assessment, you know, to look forward to. Like for example, like Faultless Defense could give you like HP, you know, a little bit more HP to work with. Anything that revolves around HP, defense, and accuracy are probably like pretty much good stat grabs to grab from like a blessing standpoint. Not mandatory though, as you obviously see, my Fat Man doesn't have any blessings, the one I'm using. Now, in terms of the blessing or the masteries here, it's pretty much the same thing. We're looking for tankiness and then accuracy, right? So we went down the support tree to get Eagle Eye, the 3 accuracy masteries you get on the right side for the support tree. Lore Steel amplifies your set bonuses, and then of course on the left side, you know, defense, damage mitigation, a little bit of a sprinkle on heal for Shadow Heal. It's pretty much the exact same thing, rinse and repeat across the board, right? So there may be like 1 or 2 that you might see here that's kind of like a throwaway because like, you know, Fahrakin is not placing any buffs, but there's not really anything that gives you any value here as well. And for the sake of keeping it in tune and locked in, I didn't want to add like Cycle of Magic or anything like that because it was just kind of pointless. It's a throwaway stat, for lack of a better word. So with that being said, we went with this build here for that. And the most important ones is the ones I kind of highlighted out there, which is the ones that give you accuracy and whatnot. So it definitely amplified your capability of being able to land those debuffs and go from there. Now, like I said, for improvements, I would definitely look to get Aniri's blessings a little bit higher so she can open the door to go a slower tune for her build, but also to allow us to have food. That'd be the next step for a build like this. And then alternatively, if you feel like Fahrakin is putting too much stress on your Aniri, I wanted to give a special nod to some alternative champions, which we haven't really talked about too much, which would be like someone, for example, like Gorlos. The main thing you're looking for, and we talked about this in our live stream, was you're looking for people who could do like HP burns, right? That's basically all it is. That's the main output from Fahrakin that you're looking for. So HP burns is the way to go. Gorlos actually does provide that. That's an epic that you could use. Of course, we can also give a nod to one of the more established duo comps that you've probably heard about before. Now, I try not to like throw like, oh, just use this legendary out there. But I mean, it is noteworthy that Walking Tomb Drain is positive affinity for Sand Devils. He also has HP balance as well as the HP burn. And I believe he also has activation as well. So you can get that out there. Also, being a legendary, being able to have something like a protected brimstone if he has like a higher blessing count, which means that you're just getting the damage output a little bit faster, which means the runs will go by faster, would be a special noteworthy towards like legendaries versus these epics that I'm giving a nod to. But with that being said, Gorlos, Fat Man, they still work in this comp like just as they are. You just got to make sure you're accounting for those those deficiencies that may come a part of, as you know, since like Fat Man has his passive and it gets a lot of issues. So with that being said, I know that right now the powder's the new thing that's on the block that everybody's looking to get their hands on. So if you don't have legendary champions like Walking Tombstone, and you're looking for a solution to get yourself into Sand Devils 25, and you have an Aniri, and you're wanting to plug and play her with somebody, these may be some noteworthy champions to look for. So if you have a Fahrakin you're not doing anything with, or if you have a Gorlos that you're not doing anything with, they may be worth trying to look into. And pretty much the premise is the same. Make them tanky, make them fast enough, make them accurate enough, and let them go. You know, they'll do their thing. Now, with that being said, one last little nod, and I had to kind of give this as a reminder in terms of like how the mechanics work for the Revive on Death. Aniri has to be in the lead role, because when they both die, the Revive on Death will go in priority slot first, which means that the lead role will get hit first and then slot 1. And then, of course, if you do get to the point where you're using food in this build, then you want to make sure Fahrakin's in the second list, because they're all going to die. Aniri's going to revive, and then she's going to prioritize the next priority slot, which will be slot number 1 after the lead, which is where Fahrakin should be at. You revive him, rinse, repeat, and then you'll pretty much be able to farm some food while also farming Sand Devil for the new powders, as well as the new, as well as the oils that you're going to need for the gear that you're going to be using, right? So with that being said, let me know in the comments below. Are you guys planning on using a comp like this? Was this an answer that you were like, I didn't know we could do this? If so, let me know. Let me know how you guys feel. If you have a different comp that you would like to propose for other people to try out and consider, maybe give a nod there. I'll give a special nod to the homie Biohack. I did a video that was inspired by him and Shogun, so if you want to take a look at that uses all rares. But he also did a video on Blizzard that I would like to give a special nod to, and it's very ingenuitive. It does play around the premise of Revive on Death mechanic, which is also very cool. But there's a lot of different ways you can approach doing Sand Devils, and I think that's the most coolest part about this game. You may not have Blizzard, especially if you're new to the game. You may not have the Blessings, which is also a mandatory part about his kit. But you do have a Fat Man, right? For example, maybe try him out. Anyways, with that being said, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and always remember, stay ascended. Got the